Are you done with Tyreek Hill as a Miami Dolphin?
No.
You'd
Top
like
five
you'd
receiver in the
like for
world.
them to figure out a way to make him happy and keep him here.
Yes, because he had 1,800 yards last year. Same offense, same quarterback.
Solana?
I'm not done with him, but I am angry at Tyreek Hill today. And I think that the fan base has a right to be angry at Tyreek Hill today. He gave up on his team, which, by the way, he admitted to when he didn't need to. Like, had Tyreek Hill just not talked to the reporters or just not said anything about what he said, like, hey, look, I was kind of banged up. They didn't think it was the right thing for me to go back in there. This wouldn't even be a storyline because we know he's injured and the game didn't matter. He willingly got in front of reporters and admitted to quitting on his football team. Right, he was pissed.
I think he was pissed by the last 10 games. I think he was pissed by the entire season.
And then to troll the fan base afterwards, to me, again, he's been doing it all season.
He loves
when it's just a miserable season. Right, but I mean, it's disrespectful to the Dolphins fans who are paying hard-earned money to go watch him play. I'm not done with him, but I do feel disrespected by him today.
Let me read you guys what Chris Perkins wrote in the Sun Sentinel about Tyreek. Miami Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill started the season by getting detained by police outside of Hard Rock Stadium prior to the opener against Jacksonville. Hill ended the season by setting the Dolphins' world on fire. In between, he trolled and trolled and trolled some more, and nobody said a word to him. Not general manager Chris Grier, not coach Mike McDaniel, who will both be back next season, according to a statement released by the Dolphins after the game. Nobody says a word to Tyreek, ever. The Dolphins must understand this. This is Chris Perkins. Somebody needs to get tough with Tyreek. This has gone way too far. That takes us back to Sunday's season finale against the Jets. Hill, the best player on the team, a team captain and the league's #1 player as voted by his fellow competitors, torched the Dolphins. He single-handedly started a dumpster fire and then walked away. Hill went rogue and selfish again by cryptically hinting a coach pulled him out of the game due to his left wrist injury. Hill didn't play in the fourth quarter Sunday. He at first claimed it was due to injury. All season I've been dealing with a little issue, so Hill said. The left wrist? Right, Hill said. So coach kind of pulled me out. Hill then changed his story and cryptically hinted he pulled himself out after seeing Denver was beating Kansas City. Just one of those issues, man, that, like, you know, when you look up at the scoreboard, Chiefs are down. So Hill said, his voice trailing off. For the record, after the game, McDaniel seemed to say no coach yanked Hill, and that McDaniel was told through the headset by a coach that Hill was, quote, unavailable. Hill also cryptically hinted after the game that he wants out of Miami, saying there's a lot of things about my career I need to reassess just to see what I need to do to continue to get better as a player so I can continue to reach the 1,000-yard mark. So it is what it is. Was Hill trolling again? Or is he serious, saying a coach pulled him out of Sunday's game and he wants out of the Dolphins organization? Hill went on to say, quote, for me, like I said, I've just got to do what's best for me and my family. If that's here, wherever the case may be, I'm about to open that door for myself, dog. I'm opening that door like I'm out, bro. And we all saw the quote. Chris Perkins writes, what a freaking mess this guy is. I spoke to someone last week about Hill's poor leadership. That person told me there are things about Hill that Hill does that I don't see. I agreed, but I added that the things I do see are sometimes inadequate. Hill sets a bad example. Hill is one of the most intense players I've ever covered, practice and games. I've always said that. He's a future Hall of Famer. But Hill is not an ideal team leader, and perhaps Grier and McDaniel aren't the ideal people to be leading Hill. They won't say anything to Hill about his craziness, and this craziness involves the incident with the boat captain at Hallover Marina, the incident with the social media influencer, mysteriously filing for divorce and then withdrawing the petition, the house fire, trolling fans after the Houston loss, among other things. I don't propose the Dolphins should trade Tyreek, but someone must explain to him that his conduct is detrimental to the team and not becoming of a team captain. This team needs a culture change, and Tyreek must be part of that change. But someone must explain to him what being a leader entails. If this team can't get Tyreek in line, it'll never reach its full potential. And I'm not certain Hill will care.
That leader, we touched on it earlier in the show. The C on your shoulder and the leader, whatever title, should not be about the best player on the field. It shouldn't. Leaders are born. Like, there's all kind of damn Denzel Washington phrases about leadership. It's not the best guy that plays, that makes the most tackles and all of that stuff. It's the guy that has the communication and that has the best, moral ground of trying to communicate.
Moral compass. And he's also got the gravitas where people orbit around him.
I was just going to say, a guy that can take over a room. Like, I'll tell you this, because it's a name that will it's magnetic to my. Zach Thomas was a great leader by example. Zach did not want to take over a room. Zach's not going to take over a room right now. Zach's my big brother. I talk to Zach a bunch of times, probably every 2 weeks, me and Zach just talk and chop it up on the phone. Zach's a great man. Zach doesn't want to sit there and give y'all inspirational speeches all day. That's not what he did. Junior Seau wanted to pregame give you speeches, and you respected the on the field things they do. But that leadership thing, I'll tell you this, I was not a great leader. Y'all played. You have my pregame speech that we've played before. I had to go into crazy mode. So the dudes that's yelling F people and I'll kill their parents and he beat them up, punch them in the face. Like, that's not a great leader. That's not a great captain. Tyreek Hill should not be the leader of your team. He should be the leader of receptions. He should be the leader of receiving yards and touchdowns, and that's what you should use him as. But to say Tyreek needs to lead this team, that's crazy. It should be a guy like Calais Campbell. It should be someone of offensively. And even, I'll be honest, I don't think Tua is a great leader because what I've seen in his personality. I know Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith probably would be a better leader than the guys that are balling, but just know how to talk to people, how to command the room, and how to communicate with other grown-ass men.
What I think is the most important point that Chris Perkins wrote there in the Sun Sentinel is McDaniel and Greer might not be the right people to have Tyreek on their team. And it goes back to what we started at 2:00, heat culture and Jimmy. I would submit to you, if Zion Williamson is going to thrive anywhere, it's going to be in an organization like the Heat, where Pat Riley's there and Alonzo Mourning is there and Udonis Haslem is there and Eric Spoelstra is there and guys who will check him when he needs to be checked. And the Dolphins may not be cut out for a guy like Tyreek on their team. And that's okay. Like, you can acknowledge that and say, you know what? He's not the right personality for the structure that we have here because we can't check him. And so I think Chris Perkins brings up a good point there. Someone needs to tell Tyreek this, and this, and keep him in line. But if you're not structured to do that, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
I say it to you jokingly because you'll tell the stories like the guy at Best Buy, Blue Shirt Man, when he kept trying you. And we've told stories, and I'll say the phrase, he saw pie. He saw pie. He saw a softie, and he tried him. Alpha males, if they don't see another alpha, they'll try you because they're alpha and they see a beta, and alphas are not going to respect betas. Tyreek's an alpha. If he doesn't respect you, he's going to try you, and that's the phrase of he saw pie or they saw pie. Tyreek, I'm not saying it, but to the point, if he looks at Greer and McDaniel is pie, he's not going to listen to a word they say or do anything. It doesn't
matter. Like, you can say, you could sit in a conference room during off season and go, yes, we definitely need him out there because he's a great receiver, but here's what we need him to do. Ain't going to work.
I'll ask you this question. if Mike McDaniel tells Tyreek to stop talking, don't say anything that's going to undermine me, don't disrespect your teammates or disrespect this organization at all, I don't know if he'll listen. What if Dan Campbell said the same thing to Tyreek?
Right. You feel as if there will be repercussions. And by the way, when you try Pat Riley, when he says, hey, shut up, and you don't shut up, or your actions don't connote shutting up, there's repercussions. Again, you can disagree with Riley, but the repercussions are going to be there. They're not hollow words when it comes from Riley.
And Pat, on the other side of it, speaking of the player, Pat can see pie too, because Pat's an alpha. So he loves having other alphas on his team because they're great players, LeBron, Wade, Shaq. But they're going to clash, and they're both going to look at each other when it's that time, when it gets down to that time when we're discussing what's about to happen and I disagree with you. So what's about to happen? And nobody sees pie. That's when the problems happen, because somebody is going to cower. And when two dudes don't cower, Tyreek's not going to cower. I don't want to say McDaniel and Greer are going to cower, but I think there's a better chance for them to cower than Tyreek.
But I think it has more to do with the fact that, aside from repercussions, because, okay, the Dolphins are going to suspend Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? He's going to say, oh, okay, I dare you to do that because go win without me. In Kansas City, he might have felt that way, but now he knows what happens in a place like that. He has to stay in line, because if not, they're not going to pay him. And guess what? They're going to win without him. And in Miami right now, Tyreek Hill feels like he's responsible for Tua's success. He's responsible for Mike McDaniel and his offense's success. And without him,
I came in here, I made things easy on you guys. I said Tua's as accurate as Patrick Mahomes. I said this is the place I want. I made it easy on you guys, and you rewarded me by my least productive year. Like that's where that comes from. Solano's 100% right. That's where that comes. Hey, I'm Tyreek bleeping Hill. I came here and sang everyone's praises, including the organization, and you're going to reward me by throwing the ball over and over to Malik Washington and Jonnu Smith.
And to the KC point, Solana, I love it. It doesn't have to do with fit. Like the Dan Campbell comparison is physical. As Dan's a big, strong man. Andy Reid, when did any of this happen with Tyreek when he was in Kansas City?
Well, I think it did, but I think Tyreek.
What happened?
No,
none of these stories came out. None of this foolishness.
Crowder. When Tyreek left Kansas City, I remember, aside from some of the off the field stuff involving Tyreek Hill and domestic stuff, which was all ugly, there were stories coming out of Kansas City reporters about Tyreek Hill and whether or not he was fit to be a culture leader and whether or not he was fit to be a leader in the locker room. There was. The difference is Tyreek Hill learned a valuable lesson. The Chiefs can win without me. But in Miami now, he's in a position where he feels like, you guys can't win without me.
Because you're playing without me, even though I'm out there.
2 for 20. That's what he got. This is a great lesson for Tyreek Hill, but I do think Tyreek Hill, and this is not even my MO to say it, but I think Tyreek Hill needs a very strong head coach and organization, not to check him, but just that he respects enough to shut the hell up. Almost like you know what? Tyreek needs a Pat Riley.
Right. And it works for a period of time, like it did with Jimmy Butler. It always wears off because it is what it is. They are who they are at some point.
And I'm not comparing Tyreek Hill to Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown is the perfect example with Mike Tomlin.
But I think Antonio Brown is also a little
he's
different.
out there.
Yeah, you know. But just from the sense of before he waved off the field in Tampa, just from the standpoint of he was in the most structured organization you could possibly be in, and it was a dumpster fire. Then he went to an organization similar to the Dolphins, instability in Oakland, dumpster fire. And then his second and third chances were where? With who? New England? Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, as structured as you could get, a disciplinarian, a guy who will check you, didn't work. Then he gets another opportunity with Tom Brady again. More structure, more stability, and Tom Brady couldn't reel him in. He ends up disgracing the franchise, disgracing the game. Like, for some guys, it just doesn't matter who you have there.
Right. By the end. By the end. By the way,
Yeah.
if it sounds like I'm defending Tyreek and calling out the Dolphins organization for not using him because people are texting in, what about all those drops? I'm not. I'm saying what Tyreek would be thinking, what Tyreek is thinking. I think he had a very off season, and I think he had a lot to do with it. He dropped a lot of balls that he normally catches.
Yeah. And Tyreek's still a top 5 receiver in this league. Talent-wise, even if he lost a step, and I've heard people say that, top 5 receiver in the NFL, I think he needs to be in a more structured environment with a structured coach. And to your point about Antonio Brown, I don't like the comparison because Antonio Brown's flat out crazy. I think Tyreek is just he doesn't want to be told what to do. He wants to be encouraged what to do.
I don't think it matters though if he has a great season next year or not, like, or where he plays next year. I think there's a large section of this fan base yesterday that kind of said to themselves, like, bleep this guy.
Yep.
And if he wants to build that good faith back with this organization, it's going to take a lot of work because on top of the fact that Crowder, I'm telling you, man, there's a difference.
It's going to take game 1, 3 touchdowns, 110 yards, and everybody's going to love him again.
I disagree, man.
We're commodities. Players are commodities.
It's so true. Listen, we hate someone. I'm telling you, if Jimmy Butler doesn't get traded, like Anthony Chang wrote during this 7-game suspension, he comes back and drops 30, everyone's going to love him.
Yeah. Oh, Jimmy argued with Pat. Oh, they hugged though. Yeah, Jimmy's our dude. Yeah, he gonna take us to the finals again. Come on, Solana needs to gain equity with the fan base.
Real quick look at the headlines here for the 5 o'clock Funky Buddha Happy Hour.
This guy admitted to cheating and then is trolling the entire fan base. Come to my store in Aventura. Oh, okay, Tyreek. Oh yeah, that's what I really want to do today. Of all days, after we got blown out by the Jets, go buy some Soul Runner merch. Yeah, for sure. I'll be out there in Aventura. Guy.
Those shirts are a perfect blend of polyester and cotton.
Happens to be a great fabric. You are right about that.